This episode is brought to you by Pepsi Wild Cherry. Pepsi Wild Cherry is bursting with delicious cherry flavor and a sweet, crisp taste that gives you more to go wild for. Getting wild may look different these days, but whether it's opting for a solo Friday binge watch or a big night out, everyone can indulge in their wild side with Pepsi Wild Cherry. Also available in Zero Sugar. So grab a Pepsi Wild Cherry and get wild.
Introducing Royal Caribbean's newest ship, Icon of the Seas, the ultimate family vacation. The ultimate 6 slides, 8 neighborhoods, 0 compromise vacation. The ultimate never done that, can't wait to do it vacation. The ultimate chillin' by a different pool every day of the week vacation. This is the Icon of Vacations. Icon of the Seas, arriving in 2024. Book today. Come seek the Royal Caribbean. Ships Registry, Bahamas.
Hello, Duke fans. Welcome to episode 556 of the Duke Basketball Roundup. We are here to talk about a difficult loss for the Blue Devils as they played Arizona last night. I am Jason Evans. I'll be handling the hosting duties on this one of our whatever we're on podcasts. Yes, that's the word.
556.
Donald Wine is with me as well. Donald, how you doing?
It's a little weird this morning. I didn't think we'd be talking about a loss like this early in the season, but hey, it's because we played a tough team last night. And I think that in general, when we talk about Duke fans and wanting to play these games, hey, we got that game last night. We just weren't on the right end of it.
Yep, exactly. And special guest joining us, Sam Klein. Sam was at the game last night. Sam, say hi to the people.
Good morning. I don't know if you're getting any of the background noise, but I'm doing this from the Duke Gardens, which is a rather serene place to be talking about a basketball game.
Yeah, I hear some birds back there. I like it.
Yeah, birds chirping.
Leave that in.
Before we get to any of the other stuff, we got an email, and Sam, I want to ask you about it, from Chal Nunn, who said he's been going to games in Cameron for 40 years, and he said he's never seen this many rival fans upstairs as he saw for this contest with Arizona. He said, it was a whiteout for Duke, and the students clearly got the message. And I think it looked like most of Cameron was white, but he said he could see the red all over the place. Sam, you were in the building. Give us your perspective on what Cameron was like for this contest.
And I should note that I can't stay long here, but I did want to hop on and tell you guys about this. And before I get to that, I did also want to thank Ozzy again for hooking me up with the ticket. It was great fun to watch the game with him, with an not old, let's call him seasoned DBR member. So
no question about it.
Veteran. He's a veteran.
Legend. Ozzy is a
veteran.
Yeah,
that's right. So great fun. Even despite the loss. Yeah, there were a ton of Arizona fans there last night. I don't know how much you guys could tell on TV that there was a lot of red in the crowd, and they got. I imagine you could hear them on the broadcast at certain points.
Yeah.
The U of A chant got pretty loud there in the second half when Duke kept trying and failing to come back. So that was kind of a bummer. But you know what? I was thinking to myself that I don't blame the Arizona fans for that. If I'm an Arizona fan, I'm doing everything in my power to get to this game. I was with my parents last night at the Washington Duke having dinner before the game, and the place was full of Arizona fans. But if I was an Arizona fan, I would have gone to the on-campus bar before the game. I would have been there early. I would have been as loud as possible. I'm hoping that you guys and I can all get to the game in Tucson next year to do the exact same thing. So I don't blame them. The people I blame are the season ticket holders that sold these tickets to allow so many Arizona fans to be there, because that's the real bummer. Is that so many Duke people who I know give so much money to the university to have the privilege to buy these tickets decided to, I don't know, I guess recoup some of that investment so that all the Arizona fans could make it last night. So there were a lot of Zona fans, but you know what would have calmed them down or would have shut them up is if Duke had won the game, or if Duke was playing a little better. And I will say the most disappointing thing, and I don't know if this came through on the broadcast or if you guys still had the TV on right at the end, but when the game ended, Caleb Love went up to the student section and was waving them goodbye for an extended period. As well as a number of other players too. But I don't care about any of those other guys as much as I was like infuriated by that. But that was his moment to shine. So,
I mean, a couple of guys literally ran straight, like with triple zeros on the clock, ran straight to the area, like right at midcourt, right in front of the crazies, started blowing them kisses and waving goodbye. That's whatever. You know what? We may see them again, and if we do, I bet you was going to be on the bulletin board. So that's something you can do that. But you know what? Karma comes back. I will say, from the TV perspective, the whiteout actually looked great. There's a lot of people, at least from my vantage point, watching it on TV. I did not see any red on TV. I heard it. I heard the U of A chants just like you did, but I didn't see anything but mostly white, and of course some people in blue. But I also think the visual of Arizona fans wearing a lot of red coupled against the background of white, the red is going to stand out a lot more. I feel like with when UNC comes, we have a lot of UNC fans that make it to the building, a lot of Virginia fans that make it to the building, but they all wear different shades of blue, right? Maybe Virginia wears orange, but it's in a sea of blue, and it's hard to stand out in that unless you're wearing a very bold color. And a sea of white, red is going to stand out every single time. So it might have been, maybe because of that, might have added to the fact that you kind of point out and go, oh, wow, there really are a lot of them in the building, when it could be that that's usually the case, especially for a big game like this.
Yeah. So my quick thing is that, like Sam said, if you're an Arizona fan, this is like the ticket you've been dying for decades,
right?
To play, for your team to play a huge road game in the most legendary arena in all of college basketball, one of the most legendary arenas in all of sports. You're like, I don't care what the number is. I don't care what the price is. I don't care how difficult it is. I'm getting in that building.
The plane ticket is already expensive, right? So if you're
already, so what's another
ticket,
$500?
Yeah, exactly. So they were all in, and I heard as I was leaving the stadium last night, there were two Arizona fans, probably around my age, who were walking out, like down the path the same time that I was, and they were saying, like, one of the guys said, this has got to be like the biggest regular season game we've ever played, ever.
Yeah.
And I was like, yep, sounds right. I didn't turn to him and say, oh, can I use that? Can I use that soundbite? But I believe it. And so uncredited Arizona fans, number 1 and 2, appreciate your contribution. Hey guys, I got to get going, but great catching up with you. And let's see. Hopefully Duke recovers from this and plays a lot better against Michigan State next week.
Thanks, Sam. All right, we will let you drop off. And as Sam
Take care,
goes,
gentlemen.
Yeah, adios, buddy. As Sam goes, Donald, we will move into the regular way that we deal with this stuff, and that is to start with the headlines. As usual, the DBR listeners were flooding our inbox, the dbrpodcast@gmail.com inbox, with their headline submissions. No way we're going to read all of them. it would take
there were
a ton. Yeah, exactly. But I'll just give you a few. I had 4 that stood out to me. James Baumgardner, Love rules at the Love Shack. We may hate Caleb Love, but dude, when he plays in Cameron, he typically plays pretty well. Mark Esselstein had a similar one. His headline, everyone's going to like this one. If we had a contest to vote on the headline, Mark's would win. Mark's headline was, I hate Caleb Love.
Facts. I told y'all I didn't want to see that Caleb Love in Cameron, and he's decided to show up anyway.
Jeffrey Lamb, Duke doesn't use depth in disappointing defeat. Great use of alliteration, Jeffrey. And when we get to talking about the good and the bad from this game, I'm going to talk about Duke's depth extensively. And William Kaberg was on the same kind of train as Jeffrey. He said, Wildcats expose Duke depth limitations. Donald, did you have a headline, or were there others that you liked, or did you have a headline?
Yeah, there was only one other that I saw that you did mention. I think William Carberg's was the one that kind of defined the game the most. But Chris Bynum had a couple, and one of them was early season stumble as Wildcats upset Duke. That's, I mean, really, when you think about it, no matter what you look at, when people woke up this morning, if they didn't watch the game, that was the story, that the Wildcats came into Cameron and defeated Duke in what is John Shire's first loss in Cameron Indoor Stadium as a head coach. So it sucks, but this is why they pay us the pennies and dimes to talk about it.
Yeah, so I will say that I had a headline of my own that gets to something that none of the rest of these folks mentioned that I'm sure we'll get into. I said Arizona schools Duke on effort and intensity. Will the lessons be learned? I know a lot of folks are talking about the depth. A lot of folks are talking about rebounding, and we're going to get into all those things. To me, a lot of that stuff comes back to effort and intensity. And John Shire sort of spoke to that a little bit in his post-game press conference. We'll get to that in a little bit as well. Let's start, Donald, our in-depth analysis with the good. Look, I know this was a loss. The bad section, we'll probably take a break after we do the good, and then we'll get to the bad in the back half. The back half may be longer than the front half.
Yes.
But there was absolutely some good in this game. Go ahead and get me started. Tell me what you liked the most from this effort.
So there's three guys I want to point out. The first one is Kyle Filipowski. Kyle Filipowski led all scorers, 25 points, 8 rebounds, 2 steals, 3 for 5 from 3-point range, and 0 turnovers. Like, when it comes to a big game like this, and last year we saw Flip have a lot of big games, but sometimes he was very, very not necessarily lackadaisical, but he turned the ball over in some of these big games, in some big moments. And in this one, he got the ball a lot. Arizona knew he was going to get the ball a lot, and he was still able to make things happen. He was able to, power to the basket again in the second half when we needed to make a couple threes. He made a few threes and, was one of the guys, one of the few guys on the glass for us, but also, again, taking care of the basketball when he had it in his hand, making good decisions with the basketball. That was something we haven't seen from Flip, even in how great a year he had last year. So I'm glad to see that in this sort of game, when we talk about, the 14 turnovers that we did have, Kyle Filipowski's name is not next to any one of them.
Yeah. So you said you got 3 guys you want to talk about. I'm probably going to jump in and talk about each one of them as well. But let me start with Flip. And just to echo what you said, it felt to me sometimes like he was the only guy going after rebounds. And I love the way he found varieties of ways to score. You mentioned that. He did get in some foul trouble in the first half, but I was impressed. In the second half, he stayed out of the foul trouble. It's like, he's become an experienced player who recognizes where, to expel his efforts. And I really wanted to praise the fact that he battled Arizona all game, despite them trying to take him out with physicality. He spent a ton of time on the floor in this game, and the rest would look at him like he'd fallen there on his own, but he was getting knocked to the ground by Arizona repeatedly.
There was one play in the second half where he the rebound didn't even go towards him, and all of a sudden you out of your peripheral you see him flying, and the referee was kind of shrugs his shoulders and runs down to the other end of the court, and everybody's like, wait, Flip is 240, he's not flying anywhere.
Yeah.
And unless he's on an airplane. And so if he's in the air, that means someone threw him. And yeah, it was very physical with him. And the fact is, he, for things like that, it's very easy to lose your cool. And
I was just going to say this. Go for it. Yeah.
And he did not lose his cool throughout all that. Again, there was a couple times where, a guy came down and, did a dunk on somebody else and turns to Kyle Filipowski and kind of rams into him and then does the too small celebration in front of him. What did Kyle do? He just kept his cool and came down the very next possession, hit the 3 in the dude's face. That was a sort of Kyle Filipowski we're going to need all season long.
There were some guys in this Duke team who played to win. Kyle Filipowski was one of those guys. There's no question about it. All right, go on. You said you had other guys. Keep going.
Yeah, I want to quickly point out that I didn't think Jared McCain had the best game, but Jason, when we talk about the stats game, he was very close to a 10-5-5 game. He had 9 points, 5 assists, 4 rebounds, 3 steals. So for him, he didn't have the best night shooting, but he tried to make up for it in other ways. Again, he grabs rebounds where he could. He was one of our premier distributors of the basketball. He got a few steals, that sort of thing. Again, the freshmen need to learn how to be consistent, and the freshmen are going to have all season to figure that out. But the one thing that we always stress is if something's not going right in one category, if you're not hitting the three well, or your shots just aren't falling, then you can play and make up for it in other ways and be a stat stuffer and figure out a way to help the team. And I think Jared McCain, for stretches of the game, if he wasn't making a shot, he was able to contribute to the team in other ways.
So this is funny. You said you had three guys you wanted to mention in the good. I'm going to be very interested in seeing if they're the same three guys I have, because Jared McCain was my second person I wanted to mention in the good. I thought he looked great with the ball in his hands in this game. You mentioned the 5 assists. I mean, think about the fact that he's like our third or fourth lead guard. I mean,
right.
So, depends on whether you consider him behind Jeremy Roach as a lead guard. I think he probably is. So I guess he's our fourth lead guard. For him to pick up 5 assists was really good. Very creative with his passing. When the ball is in his hands, it's a dangerous time for the opposition. He can create for himself, and he showed in this game he can really create for his teammates as well. He's going to have better games than this. He's going to step up and score more than he did in this game. But the fact that he played nearly 30 minutes, pressure-packed minutes against the quality of those Arizona guards, physical guards, and experienced guys, I was incredibly encouraged by what we saw from Jared McCain. The fact that this is his second game at the college level was really impressive to me.
I was going to say, it's a second game. So I'm not, lamenting the fact that he may have had a bad shooting night, or at least, from what we expect to be his standards. But again, he contributed in so many other ways that he was successful. Now, Jason, I have a third person, but now I'm curious. I want you to say your third person, and I will tell you if it's the same.
All right, so my third guy is Jeremy Roach, who
hit some. There you go.
There we go. Yeah, hit some really clutch shots. That 3 he hit out of a timeout with just there was 3 seconds left on the shot clock. It was with about 2.5, 3 minutes to go in the game.
It was the play after a timeout, because I'll talk about the out of timeout plays.
Yeah,
later on.
Yeah, so that gave us a 67-65 lead, and Donald, I'm going to be honest. There were different moments in this game where I thought we're not going to win. We're not going to win. There were not many moments where I was like, Duke's going to win this game. That was the moment when he buried that 3-pointer to give us the 2-point lead again with about 2.5 or so minutes to go. That was the moment where I was like, we're going to win this game. I turned out to be wrong, but I don't think that was Jeremy Roach's fault. And like I said, just throughout the game, I thought he was Yes, he took some bad shots. There was one time he took a 3-pointer. At the beginning of the shot clock, he brought it down, just fired it up. I was just like, that's just not, it was contested. I was like, that's not a good shot, Jeremy. But for the most part, I thought he and Flip were the only two guys that you could count on to consistently really make something happen on offense for Duke without disappearing. Like, those are the two guys who were present the entire game. There are other guys who disappeared for long stretches.
Yeah, Jeremy Roach, I think, in addition to what you said, like you said, he was 3 for 5 from 3. There was points where, I was watching one of my best friends, and we turned to each other and we were like, that's playoff Jeremy Roach, right? This postseason Jeremy Roach. And we saw that quite a bit last night. There was points where he knew that we needed to get a bucket, and he needed to figure out a way to get a bucket. And just like Flip, he decided to do it in several different ways. He drove to the lane, he was able to do some floaters. He made a few threes. So he was able, again, to create shots and create offense, sometimes out of nothing. And sometimes he, again, like you said, late in the shot clock, there was a couple of plays where he was like, all right, I got to make a play happen. And he was able to figure out a way to get the ball in the basket. So yeah, he showed up from start to finish. Like you said, there were some moments where he didn't have his, best effort or best decision on a play. But overall, I thought he was really good. I thought, again, Flip, and we just said it, Flip, McCain, and Roach, I think, were the 3 guys that I thought came to play the most.
All right, so let's do a little more good, and I'll start with this thing. I actually thought Duke did a nice job of adjusting at halftime, and I'm going to give some credit to John Shire here for this. This was a team that got killed on the boards in the first half by Arizona. The first half number, Arizona out rebounded Duke 29-15, almost 2-1. They had an 11-2 offensive rebounding margin in the first half, but in the second half, Duke adjusted. They figured out how to bring more effort. They figured out how to bring more guys to the boards. In the second half, Duke won the rebounding battle 18-16. They won offensive boards 6-4 in the second half. It's no coincidence that Duke won the second half on the scoreboard 40-37. I think because we were so much better on the boards. And I'm going to give Shire a little bit of credit for that. There are other things about this game that we're going to talk about where I'm going to say I'm not sure what John Shire was doing, but at least in terms of halftime motivation, halftime adjustments, I thought Duke made some, and specifically they fixed a big problem they were having on rebounds. And to me, that's a definite highlight from this game.
Yeah, and that kind of segues into the last good that I have is that I thought we fought the whole game. I mean, some people talk about like effort, and effort is a very, subjective thing. Like people can decide what effort is in very different ways. But the fact of the matter is this, like I said at the top, this is a game that us as fans have wanted. We wanted a big team to come into Cameron Indoor Stadium early in the non-conference season so that we can test ourselves and Cameron can test ourselves, right? Like everyone can sit there and say, all right, is this team actually good? And we found out last night that, you know what, we actually are pretty good, but Arizona at this point right now is better. And that's fine. That's the measure of success that we have. We're not going to win every basketball game. We clearly aren't going to go 40-0 this year. But I like the fact that we decided to test ourselves against a really good team. And I thought for the most part with the energy and just really just the fight, we responded. It was so frustrating in the second half to always creep close and not quite, it felt like we just couldn't get over the hump. But those guys didn't stop fighting. And I think that's the best part about it is we're going to have more battles like this. We have to turn around and do it again in just a few days. But that's what I hope they carry from this game is, hey, we can be in any game we want to be. We have to execute, sure. But the fight always has to be there. And that's the one thing that we can control is we can fight for every single possession, every single play. And I think in the second half, it was way more demonstrative of a fight than the first half.
Yeah, my last thing I have in the good, and then we're going to take a quick commercial break, is I actually thought our defense was pretty good. Taking out the offensive rebounding, we got killed on the boards at times, but our defense did show. You talk about intensity; they did show pretty good intensity on D. I didn't feel like any of the regulars ever looked lost or confused on defense. Now, look, I know that for the most part, our regulars are guys who've been in the program and played together for a year. But Jared McCain, I thought, looked good on D throughout. He didn't get disconnected. Arizona didn't crack 70 points until there were 47 seconds left in that game. And then they tacked on a lot with free throws down the stretch.
We were talking about this game going to be, the first, you said the first to 90, right? Like,
yeah, I thought, and it was played at
played fast.
It was. Yeah. Other than, there were sometimes the defense forced teams into deep in the shot clock. Duke had some shot clock violations. That's a problem. But it was definitely, both teams were racing up and down the floor. And the fact that Arizona didn't crack 70 points until there were 47 seconds left in this game tells me that our defense was playing well. So I do think we defended well. To me, we defended well enough to win this game against a top tier team. What we didn't do, we didn't rebound well enough, and we definitely didn't shoot well enough. And we didn't get enough from our bench, especially offensively. Donald, with that, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk more about those things. The bad is coming up. Unfortunately, it's a Duke loss. We're going to dwell for a little bit on what went wrong after this. All right, we're back from the break, and we're going to begin our discussion of the bad with some of the things that John Shire had to say after this game. Look, Donald and I are clearly experts on basketball. We know as much as anybody out there, or maybe not. One of the people that knows more than us, unquestionably, is John Shire. So let's hear from him about this game. He said Duke didn't play together. Like, that was his first comment. We didn't play together. I was like, wow, that's a big comment from a coach. He specifically cited on offense, he said there were all these possessions where we had like no passes or maybe one pass and then just jack the ball up at the basket. Yes, I agree, John. On every single one of them, I was like, what are you doing? He clearly identified this. I would not want to be one of the guys in this Duke team sitting in the film session when John Shire's like, why did you take that shot without passing the ball to anyone a single time. Because there were a few of those that are just like, ugh. He lamented that our team didn't make Arizona work on defense on those possessions. This was an intense game between two really good teams going back and forth, and we gave Arizona entire possessions off. That was unconscionable. And he talked about effort. He talked about mindset on rebounds. He said too many times we just stood there and watched versus really going after the ball. He specifically called out our guards for not helping out on the rebounds. And he thought that guys were thinking about their offensive possessions and not focusing on rebounds and defense. Now, he did not say this in like an angry kind of way. You know, Coach K sometimes would be visibly angry. John Shire is very even keeled in these press conferences. And he wasn't like screaming or ranting or anything like that. But for him to say, we didn't play together, we didn't have effort or mindset on rebounds, we were thinking about our offense instead of focusing on rebounding and defense. I mean, wow, that is damning stuff from the head coach. Donald, what's your thought on what John Shire had to say?
I mean, we'll talk about the rebounding in a little bit. So I'll focus on the fact that I feel like there was a lot of times where the team felt off, particularly on offense. I think on defense, there was a couple of times where it felt like we couldn't get into the positions that we needed to force Arizona to make a bad decision. And because we weren't in the position to force them to make a bad decision, we also were not in a position to get the follow-up rebound. And it felt like, you know, sometimes they would blow right past us. And it made Arizona, who was already a tall team, we talked about that, it made it feel like Arizona was that much taller, right? Keshad Johnson destroyed us. And Keshad Johnson is what 6'8", 6'7", and it felt like he, you know, the way he was playing, it felt like he was 7'2", because it felt like no matter, whenever he went up for something, he was the only one coming down with it. And it was that sort of thing where, and those things happen. But at the same time, again, I thought the fight and energy was there. But on defense, there were some times where we were not in position to make a play. And because of that, it kind of, you know, built up on itself. And Arizona was able to get quick buckets because they weren't, because we were flat-footed. On offense, I think the decision-making wasn't there, particularly in the first half. We had a lot of possessions that went down where there wasn't really good decisions with the basketball, whether it was to shoot, whether it was to pass, whether it was to dribble into a better position. Those decisions weren't being made. And again, it's early in the season, so we can't say that this is a outlier, nor can we say that this is something that we've seen consistently. But it is something that has got to be a point of emphasis. When you have the ball, you have to make good decisions with the basketball. It led to a lot of steals, it led to a lot of turnovers. And for us, it just led to some possessions that we just felt like, you know, man, we really wasted that possession. And in a game like this, you can't waste possessions.
Yeah. So one of the things Shire was mentioning was effort. And I think I just felt like Duke didn't have the intensity and focus and effort that was required in a game like this. We came out really cold. I thought we looked flustered at the start. Duke hit just 2 of 12 3-pointers in the first half. That's just 16%. And we were taking good 3-point shots. They just weren't going down. And it felt like Arizona was getting all the 50-50 balls. You know, they just seemed a little bit quicker to the ball at times. I think Shire's right that you know, maybe our mindset was a little bit off in this game, that we just weren't quite ready for a game of this effort at this point in the season. And that's, you know, that's a major source of concern. I'm glad Shire identified it. But so let's get a little bit to the rebounding. And to me, there are sort of two main places in the bad that we're going to be talking about, I think, for the most part. And that's going to be the bench / the rotations and the rebounding. And Donald, I know you want to do the rebounding first. We got an email from Didac Garcia Grau, who was last season's headline monitor. Hat tip to anyone who goes out there and you know, really spends the time and the effort to be a line monitor. It's not as much fun as people want to make it out to be.
You got two former ones on this show. Like,
exactly. Yeah.
We understand more than anybody.
we exactly. Yes. Donald and I, both former headline monitors, although back in my day, it was not an official title that was bestowed. It was an unofficial title that was given to me as the first, so to speak. But Didac wrote to us from New Zealand. He was in New Zealand watching the game, which is just really cool. And I wanted to highlight some of the things he said. He said that it's pretty clear that Stewart and Reeves are not effective rebounders yet. You know, one of the reasons that we saw a good bit of Ryan Young and we didn't see much of Sean Stewart or Christian Reeves was that he was like, you know, those guys just aren't ready to rebound. And in fact, he noted that at one point, Christian Reeves is just, you know, so out of position on rebounds. I noticed the play where Reeves got fouled in the second half. There's sort of a key moment where Christian Reeves got fouled. He went to the free throw line as a result of it, where an Arizona guy went over his back, and Christian Reeves was not trying to grab the rebound there. He hadn't seen the ball. He didn't know where the ball was. And the guy went over his back because the Arizona guy was like, well, the ball's there. I'm going to go get it. Even though Christian Reeves sort of had lost track of what was going on there. That's a little bit, to me, indicative of Christian Reeves as a rebounder. It's not exactly something that gives you confidence that he's going to become a better rebounder, at least not right away. He's got to be able to find the ball. I don't want to call him out too much because I thought he didn't play a ton, and there were a lot of other Duke guys who did not do a good job of rebounding. Don, I know you want to talk about the rebounding more, so get to it.
Yeah, I think the first part, we talked a little bit about this when we discussed the good, in that Arizona had our number on when they had the ball on offense. They had 11 offensive rebounds in the first half. They had 15 offensive rebounds for the game. And in any game last year where we had a team, we allowed a team to get more than 7 or 8 offensive rebounds over us, we generally did not do well in those games. And it's because you're just giving them more opportunities to make baskets. You know, the fact that they made 2 more baskets than us, they attempted the same number, and the fact that they had 15 offensive rebounds, that tells you kind of how good our defense really was last night. In the fact that if we had gotten them out of the way on one shot attempt, it could have been a blowout. It could have been a game where would have been a very, very happy Duke, fan base this morning. But instead, we were focused on, again, it was a point of emphasis. We've said that, hey, if we do not rebound well, we're not going to do well. And that's exactly what happened. We did not rebound well. On offense, we had 2 offensive rebounds in the first half. We had 8 overall. 8 is a decent number, but last year, like we said, we were getting offensive rebounds. Sometimes we were getting more rebounds than the other team on offense and defense. We were winning the battle on both ends of the floor. And this year, it seems like that is going to be something that needs to be overcome. Flip can rebound, that's for sure. Ryan Young, at stretches last year, he was able to, but it wasn't quite consistent. We need somebody else to be able to rebound. Mark Mitchell, it doesn't, again, as John Shara said, it doesn't have to be the big man. The guards can also rebound. We need guys when long threes that are missed equal long rebounds, which means guards need to be able to put a hand up on the shot, and when the shot goes up, turn around and put their body into that player so that if the rebound does come long, there's nobody getting it but a Duke player. And I think that just is not necessarily something that this team appears to be good at early on in the season. It's obviously, this is something that can be improved though, Jason, right? This is not like, well, these guys aren't tall
for sure.
They're not getting any taller. Like, these guys can rebound better, but they have to make it a point of emphasis to say, hey, if that ball hits the iron, nobody gets it but somebody in a Duke jersey. And they need to have that focus. They need to have that intensity, and they need to have that determination. We're going to go up against the Michigan State team who literally, like, if you do not rebound, you cannot go to Michigan State to play basketball. That is their bread and butter. So they need to be ready to once again meet a team that is going to be physical, that is going to be, again, determined to get the basketball if it does not go through the basket. And we need to say, hey, these battles are not going to be won by the other team. They're going to be won by us. That's what we did well last year. We need to get back to that this year.
Yeah, so I want to move to something else that we heard a lot from the listeners about, and that was John Shara's rotation. Specifically, people complained extensively about Ryan Young playing as many minutes as he did, and Ryan Young was in there down the stretch in the final few minutes of the game, and people were very surprised at that. There were a lot of listeners who wrote to us and said that Sean Stewart or Christian Reeves needed to be in there more, that we need to play more small ball with Kyle Filipowski at the 5. To me, that kind of brings us to the question of the bench. About Ryan Young, I'll say this. If they're leaving you wide open at the free throw line, to say nothing of the 3-point line, you have to find a way to be dangerous from there. We saw in the preseason practice footage that we got that Ryan Young was taking occasional 3-pointers. I don't know that he needs to fire away every time he's wide open out there, but I mean, how bad does his shot have to be that he wasn't allowed to or wasn't willing to take any of it? I mean, they were 7-10 feet off of him when he was outside the 3-point line. They were 3 or 4 feet off of him when he was close to the free throw line. And he's just got to find a way to be more dangerous, because when Ryan Young was in the game, Arizona was clogging the lane. They knew that Duke had guards and Kyle Filipowski. And Mark Mitchell. The whole team wants to take that ball to the hole. And when Ryan Young was in the game, it was really, really difficult to take the ball to the hole, because they were taking a guy and just leaving him both feet in the paint. Wasn't even dreaming of coming out of it. That's just that Duke's got to figure out a way. If Ryan Young's going to play, and I think Ryan Young should play, then there has to be a way for Duke to make it dangerous when Ryan Young isn't specifically standing in the post.
Ryan Young had one attempt at the basket last night. Just one. It was a play where he took the ball, kind of realized that nobody was guarding him within, 13 feet. He drove into the lane. He laid it off the glass. He missed it, grabbed his own rebound, put it back up, and missed it again. So it was one possession where he had two shot attempts.
Yep.
Missed them both, and that was the only time that he shot that game. I think when you're in that position, and this is not a Ryan Young issue, right? This is something you see across basketball. I mean, when I was in high school, we had this play as well, where you have a big man who's 6'9", 6'10", and cannot shoot outside of 4 feet, and you're just like, all right, cool. No matter where he is on the floor, if he's not within this like little radius, don't worry about him. Focus on somebody else. But what if you're the person that is that player, right? Or on that team, what you would do is tell that player, take a shot. It doesn't have to go in, but you got to make them play more than, play at least token defense on you, because even them drawing out another couple feet under the threat that you might shoot the ball is enough to open up that lane a little bit more for someone else to go through. And I think that is where I was confused last night about what was going on, because there was times where I'm like, Ryan Young may not be able to make that three, but shoot it. Why not? Right? If they're going to give it to you, at least test them and say, okay, because if it goes in, guess what's happening next time? That player's on him. Yeah. And again, that opens up the lane a little bit more. He may not, again, he doesn't have to make it, didn't have to make all of them, but even that free throw one, if he can learn how to just like take a couple of them a game, he's going to be that much more effective, because again, that's going to draw a defender out. That's going to open up not just lanes for people to drive on, but it's going to open up passing lanes for Ryan Young when he does have the ball. Wanting, and as great a passer as he is, he needs those passing lanes. We didn't have him last night because the guy that was in front of him was 10 feet off of him, and they didn't know how to react to that. And I think they did better in the second half with that, but it still, again, goes to show Arizona had a game plan when it came to neutralizing the pass, and it was just not putting a body on him. And because of that, there was no passing lanes for him to pass to.
So I'm going to move on to someone else on the bench. Man, Caleb Foster. That was a truly impressively bad game. I'm sorry. I love the kid. The kid's got a bright future. There's no question about it. Donald, do you know he almost put up a 12 trillion?
Yep. He had a foul. Exactly. Caleb Foster played 12 minutes and 43 seconds of this game. His grand contribution to the game was a foul. It's the only thing he did. Did you notice this? Duke's plus minus when Caleb Foster was on the floor was -9. Both Kyle Filipowski, who played 30 minutes, and Tyrese Proctor, who played 37 minutes, had positive plus minuses. Tyrese Proctor played 37 minutes. Duke was plus when Tyrese Proctor was on the floor. The less than 3 minutes he was out, Duke lost this game. And those were minutes when Caleb Foster was in the game. And I'm not saying it's all on him. That'd be absurd. It's not like the dude has 3 or 4 turnovers. But for his 12 minutes, he didn't do much. He didn't do anything. He didn't do anything to help Duke. He committed one foul
and didn't create or didn't have anything work out for him on offense. And, as I continue down the bench, Christian Reeves and Sean Stewart, only bench guys to score for us. Caleb Foster and Ryan Young, who played the most bench minutes, neither one of them scored. Reeves and Stewart, though, frankly, I already mentioned Christian Reeves. Just, he doesn't rebound out of his area at all. In fact, I'm not even sure he rebounds in his area all that much. If the ball comes right to him, he can grab it, but he's not getting any balls that he doesn't see the whole way that come right to him. Sean Stewart gets rebounds. He only played like 2.5 minutes and he had 2 rebounds, an offensive and a defensive rebound. But Sean Stewart's like a puppy dog out there running around trying to figure out where he's supposed to go. I noticed one of our viewers, one of our listeners, wrote about this, and I noticed this as well. Like, Sean Stewart came in the game, and literally the first thing that happened when he came in the game was Kyle Filipowski grabbed him and said, "You're not supposed to be there. You're supposed to be over here," and redirected him. I think that's maybe one of the reasons that Sean Stewart only played 2.5 minutes. Like, he had no idea where he was supposed to be. These guys are young. These guys are still learning. They both have incredible athletic gifts. In Sean Stewart's case, he gets to run all over the place and jump through the roof. In Christian Reeves' place, it's athletic gifts that allow him to be unbelievably tall and coordinated. So these guys are going to be Duke contributors in the future, but there's a reason they didn't play significant minutes in this game. They clearly were not ready for a team the caliber of Arizona. I hope they get there this year, but I'm not convinced that they will. And suddenly, we talked all off season, deep bench, deep Duke. Man, suddenly it looks like you got 5 starters. I'm not sure who else you can count on for anything else. And I hate that I'm saying that on game 2. And God, would I love to be wrong. But what we saw last night, not Caleb Foster, not Ryan Young, and not Sean Stewart or Christian Reeves.
I think I'm not willing to.
By the way, sorry, really quick. Jalen Blake's also played a little bit, and yes, you'll get defense. We know you get defense out of Jalen Blake. He didn't have like defensive stats really, but he plays hard defense. It means you're playing 4 on 5 on offense when he's in the game. But those are the 5 bench guys that played, and they contributed next to nothing.
Yeah, I'm not willing to declare the bench done after game 2.
No. And to be clear, I wasn't. But in game 2, they were next to useless.
Well, no, I feel you, right? Because I think, a lot of the sentiment out there was like, our benches, we have a terrible bench. Our depth is, you look at the headlines. Most people commented on the fact that we don't have depth. I think we do. It's just not ready to play yet. It's just a lot of our guys clearly last night, again, in a big game. And this is what you asked for. When we asked to play Arizona at home in the second game of the season, we don't ask for just the good stuff. You have to get the bad with the good. And I think that's part of learning. We're going to learn a lot from this game. And hopefully, again, as I mentioned, I hope we learn very quickly because
that was my headline. Will the lessons be learned? That was my headline. Yeah.
Will the lessons be learned, and they better be learned quickly, right? Because the next test is on Tuesday night. I think one thing I did want to mention with regards to not just the rotations, but it kind of flows into one of my last things I thought was bad. Our rotations, I felt, especially coming out of timeouts, led to poor execution. When you think about, and when we had Scott Rich on here, we talked about, hey, coming out of timeouts, media timeouts, timeouts after whatever, it seems like Duke always has a play ready to go. It always seems like to execute that play. And when you count up those just 8 to 10 plays throughout the game, whether it's offense or defense, we usually do pretty well. And that's usually something that can be the difference between winning and losing. Well, last night, we only had 2 plays that were coming out of timeouts, and it was the very first media timeout. Mark Mitchell made a layup. And I think with 4 minutes left in the first half, Jeremy Roach made a layup. That was it. The 3 that you mentioned that Jeremy Roach did was like the play after the play coming out of timeout. The one that we did coming out of timeout was awful. And there was one where we came out of a timeout. I'm pretty sure people could check me on this, but I'm pretty sure one of the 24-second violations we had was coming out of a timeout, out of a media timeout. And I think that's where, again, very small details, but these are details that you need to become elite. You need to focus on those details. And I think that's what, obviously what the team is going to be working on. But those 8 to 10 plays, if we convert on 2 more of them, we're winning this ball game. It's little things like
Yeah.
that, execution was just, not great on either side of the basketball. And again, it's not just when we have the ball coming out of the immediate timeout. If Arizona had the ball coming out of immediate timeout, they would score. So again, that's 4 points. It's a 4-point swing when you're thinking about it. And also added to the fact we talked about at the top that, a lot of people said there's a lot of people in red screaming throughout the whole game, U of A, U of A. You know what would have really shut them up? Those momentum killers or those momentum builders on behalf of Duke. And we didn't have anything. Anytime it felt like we got to a point where we're like, all right, we're about to take the lead. Jason's probably sitting there like, yo, we're about to win this game. We're about to take over. We would, or we would have poor execution on offense or defense, and it would lead to Arizona scoring points on the other end. And those things are backbreakers. So it's a lot of things that we want to work on. But having said that, I'm almost glad that we played this game because, again, if we want to be a really, really good team, we want to win a national championship and have all these expectations that have been placed upon us work out, we need games like this to show, like, hey, we may not be as ready as we thought we were. We need to get ready very quickly. So I all this bad that we're talking about is not an indictment on the season. These are all things that can be worked on. With the exception of height, no one's getting 6 inches taller in the next 6 months. Other than that, everything can be worked on. Everything can be improved. That's what Duke fans need to take from this. This is not a doom and gloom day in the sense that the rest of the season is chalked up as a potential disappointment. This should hopefully be the start of improving on some of these things that we can clearly see are deficiencies in this team, because we didn't win the national championship last night, but neither did Arizona.
Right. And we didn't lose the national championship last night.
And we didn't lose it either. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So the last couple of things I wanted to mention in the bad, I thought Duke had a turnover problem at times in this game. We had 8 turnovers in the second half. There were several sort of runs of turnovers that we went on that were like, at key moment. I mean, like, look, in a game this tight, every moment's a key moment. But there was a stretch where Duke had like 3 turnovers in a row. They were like bad. I mean, really bad turnovers. And it was very, very frustrating to watch. And I'm going to call out Tyrese Proctor just a little bit. Tyrese Proctor's second half line. Get ready for some bad news, people. He was 1 of 3 shooting. It was a 3-pointer. So good. It was a 3-pointer. He also, one of the ones he missed was a wide open 3, like no one close to him 3-pointer. But so he's just 1 of 3 shooting, 0 rebounds, 2 assists. I don't remember what the assists were. They may have been perfectly fine, but they were not memorable assists. And 3 turnovers. He's just got to do more for this team. And one of those turnovers was him traveling in the lane with 27 seconds left in a 1-point game where a bucket gives Duke the lead. And one of my last big thing, Donald, and then we're going to wrap up, I promise, is had we converted on that possession where Tyrese Proctor traveled in the lane, and things were happening. It was a 1-point game. If Duke converts that possession and wins this game, because I think if we make that bucket, there's a pretty darn good chance we win that game. None of the bad stuff that we talked about goes away.
Mm-hmm.
And the section where we talk about the good, other than adding something for someone hitting a clutch shot, that doesn't get any longer. The issues that came up in this game are not a function of Duke lost. The bottom line is to me, there was more bad than good in this game, regardless of what the final score was. And it goes back to lessons. There are lessons to be learned. All the bad things we cited, like you mentioned, are things that can be fixed. And last super, super quick thing. I don't know why Mark Mitchell's allowed to take 4 3-pointers with a shot that looks that bad, and Ryan Young's not allowed to shoot at all. Mark Mitchell looked rusty. You could tell he'd been injured and was just recently coming back from the injury. I don't know why. That 3-point shot of his is just really, really flat. It hasn't changed very much from last year. I don't know why he's taken 4 3-pointers and not hitting any of them. And Ryan Young is wide open outside that line and not taking it at all.
I think Mark Mitchell, I don't know if he's completely 100% from the ankle injury or whatever it is.
Yeah.
He might not be, but it's one of the things where I think above anything, like I said, if he wants to win Defensive Player of the Year awards up and down the spectrum, I think his rebounding is going to be crucial because, again, we need someone else other than Kyle Filipowski to consistently rebound. And he can be that guy. But like I said, there's a lot of times where if he's on the ball defending, that person's just not getting a chance to get to the lane for him to get a rebound, which I think is fair. He's doing that terrifically. And I thought defensively, I thought he was still there last night. I think the rebounding, when his guy is not the person shooting the ball, if he can help on the rebounding, man, we're going to be such a much better team because he not only, like you said, can go, he's not going to be shooting threes. He's going to be getting the ball into the playmakers, or he's going to drive the lane. He's going to do dunks, which he's very good at. So again, we're accentuating the bad because a loss happened. If we win, we may not accentuate the bad as much. So let's take these lessons, as you said, and let's apply them to Michigan State.
Amen, Donald. I completely agree. That's going to wrap it up for us here on the DBR podcast. Oh, wait, really, really quick. I just wanted to do play of the game. My play of the game, that little pocket pass that Jeremy Roach had in the first half to Kyle Filipowski for a slam dunk. Beautiful, beautiful. That's such a good pass. I love seeing that. So I gave that my play of the game. Did you have a play of the game, Donald?
Yeah, it was the 3-pointer that Flip had after the guy told him he was too small. When Flip was like, I wouldn't even guard you on that play. He bumps into Kyle Filipowski after a dunk and says too small, and then Kyle Filipowski just calmly comes down and shoots a 3 in his face. Like, again, I want that Kyle Filipowski.
I love it. That's good stuff. All right, we're gonna check your feed. We're gonna have a preview of the Michigan State game coming up for you really, really fast, right before that game happens, and that's a huge contest. Donald and I will be back here to recap it after it is done. Until then, latest episode of the DBR podcast in the books. He's Donald. I'm Jason. Thanks to Sam for giving us a walk through the trees, through the garden earlier. And here's the Duke Band to play us out and take us home.